I'll say, greetings, I'm Keith Harder. And then you can say, I'm Judy Harder. I was going to say what our assignment was.
Oh, okay.
Greetings, I'm Keith Harder.
I'm Judy Harder.
We're grateful for those who worked hard to put this together, and we're glad to be part of this sharing. Our assignment was, what did you hope in becoming part of the Fellowship of Hope story? That question took me back to the very first meetings and discussions that eventually evolved into Fellowship of Hope. What was central for me at that time was the desire to follow Jesus and embody his teaching. I hope to be a disciple of Jesus and to share life with others who shared that same desire and commitment. I remember the meeting where we committed ourselves to seek together what that might mean for how we lived. It was an exhilarating and exciting time full of anticipation. We did not begin with a model of community. Some of us had been exposed to various communities, but we did not commit to implement a particular model. I remember the retreat at Camp Friedenswald, where we considered what following Jesus in our economics might mean. We adapted a common treasury model that slowly evolved, but we didn't start there. We soon decided to live close together, but our initial commitment didn't assume that. When we started, some of us were involved with other churches, and it wasn't assumed that we would end those involvements. Extended households emerged at least 5 years after that beginning. In my zeal to follow Jesus fully, I believed that practicing the teaching of Jesus was possible, in contrast to many who seemed to think that it was unrealistic, including Martin Luther, by the way, and some of my seminary teachers and church leaders I knew. Part of me wanted to prove that it was possible to follow Jesus. Of course, in wanting to prove following Jesus was not an idealistic pipe dream, I was motivated by a certain amount of idealism myself, and I was more than a little arrogant. That's the shadow side of idealism, I've come to conclude. Recently, Verlin Miller shared something that he had heard on the Writer's Almanac by Garrison Keillor that reflects this truth. 2 stanzas of a poem by Linda Paston reflect this. If you live on the cutting edge, surely you'll be cut. If you live the simple life, it won't be simple. But don't forget, the wise man and the fool are blood brothers. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, too, had poignant words for idealists. Quote, those who love their dream of a Christian community more than the community itself become destroyers of that Christian community, even though their personal intentions may be ever so honest, earnest, and sacrificial. God forgive me for any way that my idealism hurt others. Surely that idealism about relationships, about economics, decision-making, and leadership gave way to a more honest assessment of what is possible in this life. And for this, I am grateful. In being part of the Fellowship of Hope story, I wanted to give the fullest possible expression to what it meant to be a follower of Jesus. I am grateful for what I have experienced and learned in that quest.
Well, I found some writing about the Fellowship of Hope, has my name on it and dated April 1970. So apparently these are my impressions about those early days 50 years ago. Single-spaced, 3-page, typed written, seeming more like personal impressions than a documentation or a historical record. But in any case, as I looked at these writings, it seemed to me that I was invested, I was energized and committed to what was taking place. I noticed I repeated words like lordship of Jesus, being the church, doing rather than talking, every part of our lives, together. All those words were sprinkled throughout the writing. My impression now, and I believe then, is that we hope to focus on, put into practice what it meant to be the church in our daily lives. Theology, church history, sociology, politics likely influenced us, but we found ourselves talking more about the nitty-gritty of everyday living. Now, this writing did not note, but I wonder about how we were influenced by the 70s. Renewal movements, house churches, community seemed to be in the air we breathed. And even though some think of the 60s and 70s as anti-establishment, I think we had hopes of something forward-looking or new or new vision, new possibilities of living out the way of Jesus, fresh new movement, outpouring of the Spirit. I'm sure we had our blind spots. I'm sure we had a good dose of self-righteousness. But my memory is that we felt positive and hopeful rather than anxious or rebellious or confrontive. At least I hope so. I wonder how our stage in life contributed to this positive energy. Most of us were young, single, or married, a few kids. We're ready to grow up as contributing adults with integrity, 100%, all out, have relevant lives, seek integrity. I think that went along with discovering a buzz at the seminary of other people in similar stage of life, and that just all added to the spirit of let's do this together. I remember being inspired by a Reba Place visit. We were sitting in a living room, so it was definitely a house church experience. Kids all over, informal, joyful, practical. Somebody shared about their cat that was injured. Someone else was grateful that their bathroom was being renovated and it was much needed, and they were happy about sharing that detail. So it was practical. Finally, I remember that our hope was to respond to be followers of Jesus, as Keith noted, and it concerned or included the world around us, but I don't remember us starting with some kind of resolve to fix or save the world. We talked about cultivating a sense of gratitude for the gift of the church, and a commitment to be and build up the church. And I hope some of that happened. It was hard to know where to look.